For 50 years, covered 10 presidencies, sat in the front row at presidential news briefings, known as the Dean of the White House Press Corps.
Any comments on Israel? We're asking everybody today. Any comments
Tell
on
them to
Israel?
get the hell out of Palestine.
Ooh. Any better comments?
Helen is one. Remember, these people are occupied, and it's their land. It's not German, it's not Poland.
So where should they go? What should they do?
They go home.
Where's the home?
Poland.
So the Jews,
Germany.
You say Jews go back to Poland and Germany?
And America and everywhere else.
Anti-Israel sentiments in Washington are not unusual, but Helen Thomas's blatantly anti-Semitic remarks sent the video into a viral spin. Viewed by millions worldwide and picked up by national networks, her comments drew rebuke from President Obama.
The comments were offensive.
Robert Gibbs.
Those remarks were offensive and reprehensible.
And other leading political figures.
Helen Thomas, the Dean of the White House Press Corps, left the White House this week.
Helen Thomas was forced to retire. David Nesenoff was thrust into the spotlight and received 25,000 pieces of hate mail.
Thank you very much. We can turn this up a little so I can hear myself. Thank you. Turn up. I flew over here. It took me 3 days, only 3 days. So, and I sat next to a very interesting person on the plane. So after I got off the plane, for some reason, I was like this for the last 2 days. So I only mention this so that if you're sitting in a seat and your head is like this, I ask you now to just take a moment. I'll give you a moment to turn your seat around, okay? Because believe me, it's not pleasant. So turn your seat around, get comfortable for a moment. It's shorter than my flight, what I'm about to say, so don't worry. You know, you go on a flight, usually people say, how much longer? People say, 2 hours, 4 hours. I said, how much longer? Somebody said, 2 days. Oh, God. First, I just want to thank the rabbi and the Rebbitzin for the hospitality here. Personally, also today, I have a big thank you to David Adler and also to Les Weiner. They showed me the beautiful harbor here today and all the sights. It was really just spectacular. And whoever provided the beautiful weather, good stuff. So I appreciate it also. Beautiful. I do fly all over the world, and it's nice to come to someplace new. So I've never been to Australia. This is my first time, and I spend most of my time flying around, and it's good to be here, and it's good to be with such lovely people. I've met a number of you. I haven't met all of you yet. My daughter called me up, and she said, how's Austria doing? I said, no, it's Australia, honey. I'm in Australia. So it's good to be in Australia, and I thought about my daughter. You know, as your kids get older, you think about them when they were little tiny kids. And I thought about and remembered the time when she was in Jewish day school. I sent her to Jewish day school, and the Jewish day school closed. I live on Long Island. I don't know if you know Suffolk County, Long Island. Long Island has 2 counties, Nassau County and Suffolk. Nassau's like Jerusalem, Suffolk's like Kentucky. You know, it's just. So we took her. The Jewish day school closed, and we had to put her into the public school. Do you call public schools here the government school? So we had to put her into the government school, and I was very, very nervous about taking her out of the Hamish Jewish school. You know, she's in a beautiful Hamish atmosphere with Jews. Now I'm going to put her in the big, bad public school. So the first day of school, I decided to pick her up just to make sure she's okay. She gets in the back seat of the car, and I asked her the question all Jewish parents ask their kids when they have any questions. I said, "No?" And she knew what I meant. So she answered me. She said, there were 3 Christians in my class. What? Who told you that? She said, the teacher. The teacher told you there were, yeah. Teacher told you or the whole class? Teacher told the whole class. Teacher stood up in front of the class and said, there are 3 Christians. Yeah? What kind of school? I said, did the teacher mention how many Hindus or Muslims or Jews are in the class? No. So I'm thinking, okay, whatever this is, it's anti-Semitic. I don't know. It's just got to be anti-Semitic. I can't imagine what. Who am I going to call? I'm going to call the teacher up. I'll call the principal. I'll call the superintendent of the schools. I'm going to call Abe Foxman at the Anti-Defamation League. I have his number in my phone. Well, I'm getting all spilkis and everything. My daughter says from the back, what are you getting so upset about? My teacher said there are 3 boys in the class. They all have the same name, Christian. I only tell you this because, number one, I just want you to know the kind of communication skills that go on in my family. I don't know how you're doing, but this is what happens in my family. And 2 is that tonight the topic of anti-Semitism may come up in my speech. And I just want you to know not everything is anti-Semitic, okay? Not everything. Some things are just 3 Christians in a class. They all have the same name. Okay? So sometimes a Jew could be driving down the Long Island Expressway in New York with a yarmulke on, going 100 miles an hour, and he gets pulled over by the police. Maybe it was the 100 miles an hour, not the yarmulke. I'm just saying. But I fought it. I was in court for 2 weeks. The whole thing didn't work out, but okay. So anyway, what I have to talk about actually took place May 2010, a couple of years ago. I sat in my office at home. And it's an interesting thing, if you ever turn off Facebook just for a moment, just for a second, turn it off, you'll notice that you look at the screen, you'll see your face. It's a very different concept. If Facebook's off, you see your reflection of your face. And you think about what I was thinking about, and that is, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? What do I want to do? And I speak at college campuses all over the world, and these kids are always selecting their major. What do I want to do? What's my major? What's my major? What's my major? They're running around. What do I want? I don't have the heart to tell them that 30 years later, they'll still be going, what do I want to do? I have no idea. I just don't get it. So let them think they can pick their major. So I was sitting there wondering, what do I want to do? I had done a couple of things. I was a filmmaker. I had a film at the Sundance Film Festival. I was a conservative, progressive, liberal rabbi for 20 years. I'm now a recovering rabbi. I go to the meetings. It's a whole thing. They're in basements of churches. I get up there. Hello, I'm David Nesenoff. I'm a recovering rabbi. Hello, David. There's not 12 steps. There's like 757 steps. It's a whole different So anyway, I was thinking, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I thought I had just returned back from Israel, from Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. And Israel was on my mind. If you're ever flying out of Israel and Ben Gurion and I'm on the plane and you hear a baby crying, it's me. I cry. I can't believe I'm leaving her. I just cry so much. I love Israel. So I sat there in my office, May 2010, saying, whatever I want to do, I'm going to come up with an idea to help my poor Israel. This poor Israel is always having so many problems. So I came up with a brilliant idea. I'm going to make little video snippets of Jews saying things about Israel. The falafel is delicious. Oh, the archaeology is wonderful. Oh, the Kotel, the Western Wall is so spiritual. Masada is fascinating. And I'm going to take all of these video snippets and I'm going to put them online. On the keyboard, you push that button, viral. It just goes viral, right? So I'm going to go viral, and everybody in the world will see how beautiful Israel is, and my poor Israel will be happy, and everybody will know about Israel and the falafel, and that was my plan. My wife came into my office. She said, that's the plan? That's what we're going with. She said, no, is there a health care program with this? Is there a pension? This is it. We're going with this plan. While we were having that discussion, my son, who was all of 15, 16, he's up in his bedroom. He had just returned from the AIPAC convention, the American Israel Political Conference in Washington, D.C. All of 15, he videotaped, streamed it live, the only one. Tony Blair, Netanyahu, Obama. He's up in his room now, calling the White House. He leaves them a message. I'd like to come next Hanukkah to the White House to stream live and videotape the Hanukkah menorah lighting. They call him back. We were a little confused. Do you mean you want to come next year in 10 months to Hanukkah, the menorah lighting at the White House to stream it live? Or do you mean you want to come next week to Jewish Heritage Day? And he said, next week to Jewish Heritage Day. As a parent, you know the proud moment when you realize your children know how to lie correctly. So he got 2 extra tickets for me and a friend. And we're off. I was going to use that opportunity at the Jewish Heritage Day at the White House to ask people about any comments on Israel, to put it on the falafel and the karkian, put it on the YouTube. Save Israel. I had a website called RabbiLive.com. We were broadcasting at the time prayers to American soldiers in Afghanistan, Iraq, aircraft carriers, and a lot of lazy Jews in Florida were watching it also. So I figured this is a time to go and videotape and put it out there. So what happens? We wind up, we go to the White House. I couldn't believe we got in. And my kids get tickets to the White House. It means we get in, and the first thing you do when you get to the White House, you go to the briefing room. You know, they have that thing here with the presidential seal, and the president always talks from it. You go to the briefing room. So I went there. We took some pictures at the briefing room. And then, of course, the first thing I did was I called everybody I knew to be a macha. Yeah, I'm at the White House today. Oh, yeah, I'll be here all day. Yeah. I can't make it to that meeting. There's no meeting? Oh, well, I couldn't make it. Yeah, I'll be here all day. Yeah. As I'm machering it up, I look out the window, and I see former President Bill Clinton walk by. It's Bill Clinton. Whoa! I go, I got to go. It's Bill Clinton. Yeah. I go running towards the door. I open the door up, and Bill Clinton walks right by me. I say, Bill Clinton! And he goes by, hey, how you doing? I was so excited. I turned to the next guy. I said, that's Bill Clinton! And he said, I know, I'm Joe Biden. I know, I'm vice president. So, apparently I met Joe Biden. I think he spends most of the day, I'm Joe Biden. So I met Joe, and so the Jews weren't coming till the afternoon. Apparently Jewish Heritage Day is an afternoon event. So I looked around. I did see one loose Jew. I even remember yelling on the White House lawn, look, a loose Jew! And there was this Jew. Well, he was a Chabad Jew, a Chabad rabbi, was loose on the front lawn of the White House. What's he doing? It turns out he was the mashkiach. He was taking care of making the White House kosher for the day. Gonna make the White House kosher. So I thought, oh my God, this is it. I'm going to interview the guy who makes the White House kosher. Unbelievable. This is going to be great footage. So I put him in front of the White House kitchen. I say to him, and then you could see this on Rabbi Live, by the way. It's unbelievable footage. I said, so, do you kosher and kosher the spoons? And he said, yes. I said, and what about the forks? Oh, the forks. I said, what about the knives? All the knives. You know, first of all, by the way, I couldn't believe when I first saw him that, what he was doing there 2 hours early. I never saw a Chabad rabbi come 2 hours early to something. I figured he thought it was yesterday. He's just... So you could see that footage. So anyway, we had a little more free time, so we're walking around the front lawn. My kids, they wanted to go out, into Washington and leave the White House grounds. I told them, no way. I said, it's a big mistake they let us in here in the first place. So we're not leaving. We'll never get back in. So we walk around, and sure enough, who do I see? Helen Thomas. She's walking towards me with some aide, somebody helping her. She's walking towards me. Hell, I didn't know anything about her other than the fact she's the most famous journalist in the world. She's 60 years in the White House, sat in the front row, always had the first question, always asked it, always stood up. She was there for Eisenhower and Kennedy. I think she dated Lincoln's younger brother. I'm not sure. And I feel, look, she's a journalist for 60 years. I was a journalist for 60 seconds. I thought it was time we met. So I walked over to her, and all my camera equipment was in the White House, but I did have my little flip camera. You know the flip cameras? When I talk to college audiences, I have to explain. It's a 1.5 year old technology. So it's a little camera, and I take it out, and I decide to ask her about being a journalist. She said, I'll always keep asking questions. I have a question. The one question I talked about in my office at home that I was going to ask about Israel. And let me tell you, when you're sitting at home sometimes, there's hashgacha pratis, there's a divine presence. God is listening, okay? If you have an idea, he's working it out. Maybe he thinks the falafel idea is not so good, but he can make a better idea. So I said, I have one question, I'll ask her. I said to her, any comments on Israel? And God looked down and said, okay, David, knock yourself out. Here, have this, go, take it. And she said, tell him to get the hell out of Palestine. I said, ooh. Now, my son and his friend over there, they looked at me like, we had to take a shower for this? I mean, this is who you introduced us to at the White House? Who is this person? And I looked, and I just said, ooh. Ooh. It's on the tape. You heard it, ooh. I was interviewed a week later at Fox and Friends Television News. They said, Rabbi Nesenoff, when you said ooh, what were you thinking? And I said, I was thinking ooh. The Washington Post and the New York Times had a bidding war for my op-ed piece. The Washington Post won. I wrote all about a post-ooh world. I said ooh in very poetic sense. The ooh is what happens when you rip out from a Jew the very essence of his being. Your shofar, your ram's horn goes off. Ooh, 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 I said ooh. Yeah, I said ooh. So I didn't know what to do. Someone, if I was back in New York and someone said, tell them to get the hell out of Palestine, a bunch of skinheads, in the back of a bar, I'd get a bat out, and start rumbling and beating them up, and we have a little fight, a little Jewish Defense League, But here I'm at the White House. She's 89 years old. I'm the skinhead. The whole thing was very confusing. I didn't... I figured I'm a journalist. I should ask her a question. So I thought, what would Barbara Walters do? What would, what would Oprah say at the point like this? So I looked at her and I said, tell them to get the hell about it. I said, where should they go? And she said, home. Home. Now, by the way, the camera, you saw the footage. Everybody said, because I moved the camera so close to her face, people said I used special software to make her look ugly. Now, I'm not that technical, I don't know about such things. So I moved it closer because God wanted me to move it closer, because when I started talking to her, the lawnmower started going on the front lawn. I'm like, the sound's going to be bad now, so I just moved it real close to her so the microphone would be. And I often wonder why the lawnmower started going on the front lawn, and I figured it out. Michelle must have said to Barack, the Jews are coming this afternoon, the place is a mess, there are weeds, could you get out? And Barack gets out there, So she said, home. So I said, where's home? And she said, Poland and Germany. Oy, gewalt. Can you? Yeah, I said, oy. I wish I could go back to Poland and see the Stettlach, Scherps and Drobnin. Go back and see where there were candles lit in the windows of the houses of our families, and you could hear Shalom Aleichem sung from every house through the woods in the shtetl, in the little villages, where my name, David, named after Devosia, my great-grandmother, who is buried in Babi Yar with tens of thousands of Jews. Yeah, I'd like to go back to Poland. But there is no Poland. It's all gone. There's not one shtetl. So at that point, I said to her, are you familiar with the history of the Middle East? And she said, I'm from Arab background. So, oh, well, that explains it. Well, that's an answer. Okay. So I started speaking to her in Arabic. Well, apparently Mrs. Thomas of Arab background doesn't speak a word of Arabic, and Rabbi Nesenoff speaks 2 dialects, but okay. So the friend that was with her, the woman, decided this was not going well and said, let's go, and they went off. So I went back. First of all, in the White House, I did get people talking about the falafel and the archaeology and everything else, and I put it online. But when I got back to New York, I asked the Jewish person in the newspaper industry from Jewish Week, I said, told him what happened. And he said to me 2 words: no news. Now, maybe no news because it was known, her feelings, I don't. Or maybe no news because he didn't see the video. We're in a visual world now. Video is very strong. When I speak to journalist schools, video is very powerful. That's what we have to go with. So he said no news, but I thought I should still put it on. I should put it on the web somewhere. So the fact is, to put anything on a web today, you know what you need? You need a 15-year-old, okay? No, your guy is CEO of a company, $10 billion, has 12 aircraft. He needs to put something on the line. He's like, get me a 15-year-old. So my son was busy taking finals, and, I didn't want to bother him, take him away from his studies. I figured, let me wait a day, wait another day. An entire week went by. The video was still in my camera. An entire week. Hashgacha pratis, there was a divine providence. Something happened in that week that still is going on in this morning's news. The flotilla from Turkey happened that week. Arab terrorists came over from Turkey, waiting for Israelis to board the ship and kill them. The Israelis boarded the ship, and they beat them, and then Israelis finally defended themselves and killed a couple of the terrorists. Israel was then at its lowest of low. Everybody putting down Israel. Helen Thomas got up that day, front row, 2 feet from the president in the White House, and she said, it was a deliberate massacre on the high seas by the Israelis against peace activists. That night, my son had some time. We put up the video Thursday night, Friday morning, 2 in the morning, sent it to some bloggers, put it out there. He went away on Shabbos for a Jewish weekend with his teenage friends, Shabbaton. We turned off the computer. Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night, I crank on the computer to see if anybody watched it. At that point, we had 700,000 views. And that's just the people that didn't observe Shabbos, by the way. By Sunday, it was incredible. It was all over the place by Sunday, all over. Everybody's watching it. But by the way, I learned something about journalism. If, God forbid, there's a nuclear holocaust on a Sunday, they don't give it to the schlepper on the news, on the television until Monday. Monday, the guy shows up, the anchorman shows up with a limousine. He gets the story. So Sunday, it was still quiet all over the internet. But Monday, it went mainstream. Mainstream. My wife and daughter are out of the house. My son's off at school. I'm sitting in his room with a little soccer football wallpaper up there, and I'm sitting down on the chair on his little computer. I'm getting like this, emails coming in. Thousands a second. First of all in all, we had 25 to 30,000 hate mails and death threats. We had to have a Homeland Security box in the house. We had a room in the house to open mail, a safe room. We were trained by certain organizations on how to walk out of the house, look under the car, drive away, look around while we're driving. But that just started that day. That just started. What happened? We started getting press also. The entire press corps wanted to know who was the guy behind the camera. Who did that? So I'm sitting there looking at thousands and thousands of requests come in online in my kid's room on his little chair, you know, the whole world press corps. And I'm like, what? Okay, God. Okay, what do you got for me now? How do I do this? And the phone rings. It's Ari Fleischer, former President Bush's press secretary. It'll do. He says, Yasher Koach, Rabbi Nesenoff. I said, thank you very much. And he gave me a piece of advice. He said, you have to have a message. You're going to be all over the place. Believe me, you're going to be everybody. You have to have a message, because if you don't have a message, they'll make a message. And number two, it's an opportunity to give a strong message, but you should know what your message is. I said, what's my message? He said, I can't tell you. So you got to find a message. So my son comes home from school. I tell him, Ari Fleischer called. My son says, I know, I told him to call you. Who is this kid? I said, Ari said we should get a message. I said, what's our message? My son says, we need some advice. We got to find someone to give advice. I said, well, who do we call? My son said, listen, I see what's going on with my cell phone and all the messages coming in. This is front page news. You can call anybody in the world. They'll take your call. Anybody. Who do you want to call? I said, well, I don't know about it. He said, I'm telling you, you call somebody, they'll take your call. Who do you want to call? Something, okay, well, let's see. Need advice from somebody? This is a story about anti-Semitism. It's a story about politics, the world, Germany, Holocaust. I don't know. I said one name. Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel. Famous Holocaust survivor, wrote all the books, Nobel laureate. Elie Wiesel. My son walks out of the room. I am telling you, it was seconds. Seconds. He comes in here. I got Elie Wiesel. Yeah. I'm like, Professor Wiesel? Yes, Rabbi Nesenoff. I know he sounds like Ari Fleischer, but I can only do one imitation. Yes, Rabbi Nesenoff. I said, you know, Professor Wiesel, if you ever speak to him, by the way, it's Wiesel. Get it right. I said, Professor Wiesel, I'm getting a lot of hate mail. And he said, I get a lot of that too. Yeah, I suppose he does. If someone's going to get hate mail, that's the guy. So I said to him, listen, I need a message. Yeah, he's a Nobel laureate. He wrote every book on the topic of hate. He speaks it from Washington to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. I said, I need a message. What's my message? I'm going to be on television, on the radio, on newspapers. I need a message. What's my message? Please tell me. And he says to me, I read about you in the paper this morning. I read that you pray at Chabad in the morning. I said, yeah, I'm a Chabadnik. I love Chabad. Which, by the way, I tell you, I didn't know it was more crazy that the newspaper's telling where I pray, or that over coffee, Elie Wiesel is reading about it. You know, the whole world's gone crazy. I said, yeah, I'm a Chabadnik. And Elie Wiesel says to me, why don't you find out what the Lubavitcher Rebbe would have wanted you to say? So, oh, okay. Thank you very much, Professor. I've spoken to him since then. Next morning, I go to shul. My Chabad shul on Long Island, Stony Brook, Long Island. Chaim Grossbaum is the rabbi. I walk, of course, now I have an entourage. You know, I'm walking in. There's a guy carrying my talis and my tefillin bag, and I'm walking. I mean, I have no time for anything. I'm on the phone. I'm like, strap me up. I'll say amen. Amen. So, after the minyan's over, I go up to Chaim Grossbaum, and I say to him, Ari Fleischer told me to get a message, and Elie Wiesel said I should find out what the Lubavitcher Rebbe would want me to say on television. Now, this is one of the reasons. I love Chabad for a lot of reasons. This is one of the reasons I love Chabad. Anybody else you say that sentence to will look at you like, what? Chabad rabbi? He looks at you and says, okay, let's find out. Right, we got to save the world. Let's go to it. Come on, he gets it. Chabad's here to do it. We got to take care of things. He said, I can't give you the message, the rabbi said. He said, but I have to find the right person, somebody who knows, what the Rebbe thinks and how he thought and all his writings about everything, and also somebody who knows Washington and somebody who understands politics and the press. He came up with one name, Rabbi Avram Shem Tov, who happens to be the father of the mashgiach at the White House, by the way, just as a... If you're keeping track of Chabad rabbis in my story. So, Avram Shem Tov, he gets him on the phone. And of course, he knew the whole story. He knows everything about it. He's also a big, great rabbi. He puts it on speakerphone, and he talks. Now, even though I'm a good talker, I listened very carefully. And I listened to him. And he spoke. And he gave me a message from the Rebbe. And since then, we've learned more about the Rebbe, and it is indeed a message from the Rebbe. What was the message? Well, because you folks somehow are here tonight, for whatever your schedules and this and how you came to meet Chabad and all you do, each of you has a story. For some reason, you're sitting here tonight. And because I spent 3 days on an airplane, okay, I'm here tonight. And we're having a little hashgacha pratis, a little divine providence that all of us are meeting at this time in our life at this moment. Baruch Hashem, thank God I'm going to get to give you this message. He said like this. If you have a friend, and your friend goes away for a year, is it still your friend? Sure, it's still my friend. If your friend goes away for 4 years, is it still your friend? Sure, still my friend. If your friend, as we get older, goes away for 50 years, you don't see your friend in 50 years, is it still your friend? Nah, not really. It's someone I used to know. It's not my friend. Yeah. But if you have a child, and your child goes away for a year to college or someplace, is it still your child? Of course it is. If your child goes for 4 years, is it still your child? Of course it is. If chas v'sholem chalila v'chas, God forbid, I don't want to think of the circumstances of what it is, but let's just say, for example, your child you don't see for 50 years, is it still your child? Of course it is. He said, we are not the friends of Israel. We are Bnei Yisrael. We are the children of Israel. Sometimes we're away for 50 years in North America or Australia or Europe, and sometimes we're away for 2,000 years in Golus and diaspora, and sometimes we're away for 4 years in Auschwitz. But we are always the children of Israel. Doesn't matter where we come from, what accent, what language, doesn't matter what era we're born in, doesn't matter if we ever step foot in Israel. We are the children of Israel. And the children of Israel and the land of Israel are one. According to the Torah, according to God, it's God-given. And you can't separate them, and they exist because of each other. The Jew walking in the street in New York doesn't even know he's Jewish and doesn't care. He's Jewish and exists because of Israel, and Israel exists because of him. 2 days later, I'm on CNN, Howard Kurtz, reliable sources on international television. Well, Potch get up in the studio, sitting there. I have absolutely no idea what the question was, but I know the answer. I said, the children of Israel and the land of Israel are one, and they exist because of each other. He asked me a second question. I started off by saying, did I mention? I got home, I had an invitation waiting for me. I actually drove across the United States and made a film first with my son. We made a film called 3,000 Miles. We asked everybody from the head of the white Aryan race and the head of the KKK and Jackie Mason and people on the street, all about Israel, anti-Semitism, and it premiered at the Simon Wiesenthal Center this past year. But we got home. At that point, I had a letter waiting for me. At this point, I have to stop in college audiences and explain what a letter is. It's this paper, a little sticky thing on the stamp, and they open it up, and so there was a letter waiting for me from Yale University, inviting me to be the keynote speaker at the Yale University Global Symposium on Anti-Semitism. First thing I did was I called my mother. Ma, remember when Yale didn't accept me to school? Well, now they want me to teach. So, of course, I called up Yale and told them I'd put them on a waiting list. Now, I called them up. I was very gracious. I said, thank you very much. I went to Yale. They had 100 or so people up there. It was an amazing crowd, all these professors. By the way, before I even got into the room, I said, sometimes things happen before you even get into the room. The lobby is the place things happen. I get there. Some guy comes running up to me in the lobby. Are you Rabbi Nesenoff? I said, yes. He said, oh, I thought it was you. I admire you. I like what you did. I said, well, thank you very much. My wife, not so much. I said, oh, well, does she like Helen Thomas? Oh, nothing to do with Helen Thomas. You officiated at our wedding 5 years ago. think he was having a little trouble. And I said, whatever. I hope it worked out. So I get inside. I speak to these people. Before I get to speak, I'm sitting up there like a bar mitzvah boy. Charles Asher Small, the head of the symposium, gets up there. And he says, before I introduce our guest, I want to say one thing. I want to tell you why he's our keynote speaker. The real reason why. And I was so curious. He says, I never watched television, but I was watching CNN, reliable sources, Howard Kurtz, and I saw this rabbi, and I only heard one sentence. All I heard him say, and he went like this, the children of Israel and the land of Israel are one, and they exist because of each other. It's God-given. And he said, something came over me when I heard that sentence, and he said, my symposium on anti-Semitism has to hear that sentence. And he asked me to come up. When I got up there, I threw away the 3 speeches that I prepared, and I thought it was a time to tell people where that sentence came from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Wow. Who would have thought that in this day and age, in any day and age, we have to remind people that the children of Israel and the land of Israel have some connection. Helen Thomas and those like her say that, there's no connection. There are many Christians, by the way, wonderful Christian families and people contacting me because they know that if the children of Israel and the land of Israel have no connection, there's no gifts under the tree this year. You know what I'm saying? Okay? There's no other religions. There's no other judicial systems. There's no other foundations of the world. There's nothing. Children of Israel, land of Israel. Simple message from the Rebbe, but right to the point, to the core of all negotiations and all problems that we're speaking of. So Helen Thomas, what did she ultimately do? All those people who say, I'm anti-Israel, I'm not anti-Semitic, like she always said. Well, she didn't say you should get out of the West Bank and go back to Haifa. You should get out of Jenin and go to Tel Aviv. You should get out of, Bethlehem and go to, Chulon or something. She said, cleanse the entire area of Jewish people and send them back to the place the cleansing began. It's anti-Semitic. So now when we hear anti-Israel words, we now say, okay, that wall has been broken down. You know what? I think this person may be anti-Semitic also. And that's what she brought to light. Many people like her. So she was thrown out of the White House, her seat, after 60 years. She was thrown out of her speaking bureau's office. She was thrown out of her co-author's office. The high school she was supposed to speak for a week later, they threw her out. She has received since then 2 big awards from 2 terrorist organizations, which she accepted. Helen Thomas. So I went on to become the publisher of a couple of newspapers here in New York and also in Jerusalem. But I became an expert on anti-Semitism. And I'm proud to say I am, because I know how to fight anti-Semitism. I'll share it with you, because it's the most frequently asked question. So, how do you fight anti-Semitism? Okay. The way you fight anti-Jewish is with Jewish. You mean putting on tefillins? Fighting anti-Jewish? Fighting, lighting Shabbos candles? Fights? That's how you fight it? Yeah, that's exactly how you fight it. You know that thing they had, when the Gaza had the bombs falling over into Sderot, the Israeli Qassam rockets and Katyusha rockets, Israel had a special machine there. What was it called? The Iron Dome. Everybody knows the name Iron Dome. Sure, Iron Dome. Everybody knows it. It blew off all those rockets coming in. You know what it's called in Hebrew? Kipat Barzel. Kipat Barzel. It means steel yarmulke. Kippah Barzel. When they throw anti-Jewish rockets on you, you put on your steel yarmulke. That's how you fight it. Okay. My son went to school and came home every day in public school, junior high and high school, and I went down there to fight anti-Semitism because they were treating him in a certain way. I went to the principal's office, the dean's office, the assistant principal every day, over and over and over again. I didn't know how to do it. How do you stop it? He figured it out. My son figured out. He put on, one day, decided to put on his kippah barzel. He put on a steel yarmulke. He put his yarmulke on. And he put on tzitzis. And he dressed like a mensch, like a Jew. And he went to school every single day after that. And when it came mincha time, afternoon prayers, he stood by his locker and prayed. And they left him alone. Ooh, look at that. What is that? Oh, he's legit. Ooh. They said, the tzitzis gone. What are those? Whoa! You know. That's how you fight it. You put on your kippah barzel. I want to conclude with a story. It's really conclusion. Okay, I don't. I know they say Gentiles leave without saying goodbye. Jews say goodbye and never leave. But we'll try to see if we can do this. We'll see if we can make this happen. It's a story I think about a few times a day, and I apologize in advance to every single person here because I'm going to burden you with the story and you will think about it. I don't know how many times, but you'll be thinking about it. Last year, we were in Jerusalem on Hanukkah. I was there starting up a newspaper, an Israeli Hebrew-English newspaper. My son was helping me, plus he was going to a yeshiva. And the yeshiva, he was spending half the time working with me and half the time at the yeshiva. And on Hanukkah, one day, the yeshiva was taking a busload of yeshiva kids up 2 hours north in Jerusalem to go to an Israeli army base, and they were going to put on tefillin onto Israeli soldiers. And my son was, oh, this is unbelievable. I'm going to now help strengthen Israeli soldiers with tefillin. He couldn't wait to go on the bus and go up 2 hours north to the Israeli army base and put tefillin on Israeli soldiers. Couldn't wait. So he's with me at a meeting trying to sell an ad for our newspaper. And I don't have to make a whole story here, but we missed the bus. He didn't go. He's a good kid. He said, Abba, Dad, where are you going next? I'll go with you. Don't worry about it. Let's go. My next appointment was at a bar on Ben Yehuda Street called Mike's Place. It's in Jerusalem. Okay, it's a closed bar on a Tuesday afternoon. Nothing's going on there. I'm in the basement of a closed bar of Mike's Place, meeting with the owner whose name isn't even Mike. I don't understand. So there I am in the basement, trying to sell the guy an ad, and things were not going well, by the way. The price I gave him, he thought was for the year. I said it was for the week. It's a very difficult... Israelis, yeah. So as we're sitting there in the closed basement bar, talking to this guy, walks down the steps of the closed basement bar an Israeli soldier. He walks past me and the other guy, walks over to my son. He says, I rarely put on tefillin, but I feel like I need to today. Do you have any tefillin? My son goes to his bag. He opens it up. He takes out the tefillin. They put it on. He says the brachot, the blessing. He says, Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel. They pray a little. I'm sitting over here trying to sell nothing, and he's looking over there. An hour later, my son and I are on the street, reviewing the business deal. And I was a little famished. When you're in business, you forget what's going on. You don't remember. I said, what are you doing with the tefillin, carrying it around town? It was expensive tefillin. Put it back in the vault or something. What are you doing? What are you doing with the tefillin? He said, Dad, don't you remember, Abba? Today was the day I was supposed to go 2 hours north to the Israeli army base. I had it in my knapsack. It was only at that point the two of us realized, what was that about? What Israeli soldier walks along who never puts on tefillin, and he all of a sudden feels, I need to put tefillin on. I think I'll go into that closed bar, make my way down to the basement, and see if I can find me some tefillin. I'm like, what was that about? What? And then I figured it out. The soldier was a malach. He was an angel. Somewhere in the Shemayim, the heavens, they said that my son, he needs to put tefillin on a soldier. So they said, okay, get us an angel, put some Israeli uniform on him, and send him down. And if I know Jewish heaven like I think I do, the guy came down without a gun or a hat or a belt, and they're up there going, we don't have the hat, we don't have the gun, we don't have... Get him down there anyway, come on. So this guy shows up, I never put tefillin on, I think I need to today. He was a malach, he was an angel. I told this story 2 months ago in Toronto, Canada, and after everybody had left, everyone left the room, it was all done, quiet, some chassid from the back, a Jew, comes up to me, and he says, I don't believe you, you're wrong. He says, he wasn't a malach, he wasn't an angel, he was just a soldier. Your son was the malach. Your son was the angel. My son is now in Chabad, in Morristown, New Jersey. On Sunday, he goes as an emissary for the Lubavitcher Rebbe to Cuba to bring matzah to different villages, traveling by bus. I have visited and spoken at 100 Chabad houses in the world. And there I have found shluchim of this Rebbe, and they are nothing less than malachim of Hashem, of angels of God. I just want you to know I will, and I know people here will, continue to support all Chabad. And I humbly encourage Jews and all our neighbors in the 70 countries that Chabad labors to fight anti-Jewish with Jewish by supporting Chabad. Chabad, I know your work, and I know you work very hard, all the shluchim. And we will support you even harder. We are your customers, and your product is love. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. May your families continue to be strong, and may they continue to strengthen our families. God bless you. Amen.